The No Sports Central, we go over a college football game preview and prediction on the 2023 Peach Bowl matchup between the Penn State Nittany Lions and the Ole Miss Rebels. Two teams that have had great seasons getting to this point. You got Penn State 10-2 on the season, one of the top teams in the Big Ten. Second straight year this team is in a New Year's Six bowl game. They're taking on Ole Miss, also 10-2 on the season, also one of the top teams in the SEC. And this has been a team that's very much been on the rise the past few years. We'll be going over a full game preview and prediction on this matchup here today. Let's get started with their team trends. Penn State beat Michigan State 42-0 on the road to finish out the regular season. That game was at Ford Field, and Penn State was dominant start to finish there. And another 10-2 season for Penn State. Honestly, this has been a really similar season to last year. Penn State lost to Michigan and Ohio State. Those were Penn State's only two losses last year as well. And in the end, this team was a really solid top 10 team this season, but they just were overshadowed by Michigan and Ohio State in the Big Ten because they just could not get over the hump of either one of those teams. But either way, for the Nittany Lions, this is a team not to be underestimated, and kind of same for Ole Miss. Ole Miss got overshadowed by, you could say, Georgia and Alabama this season in the SEC. Pretty much the third best team in the SEC this year. You could maybe put Mizzou at number 3 in the SEC overall this season, but Ole Miss is right there as well. They beat Mississippi State 17-7 to finish out the regular season. Once again, also 10-2 on the season. The two losses for Ole Miss were against, guess who? Alabama and Georgia this season. Games be on Saturday, the 30th in Atlanta. Kickoff is noon Eastern. Spreads going Penn State by 4.5 here, as the Nittany Lions are a halfway decent favorite for this one, over 148.5, and the FPI is going Penn State as well, 72%. You look at the bowl history, Penn State 31-19 overall, a team with a lot of success in their history. They were in the Rose Bowl last season against Utah, beat them 35-21, so the second straight New Year's Six bowl game for Penn State. And if you look before that, they're in the Outback Bowl back in 2021. And then the Cotton Bowl back in 2019 against Memphis. But as for Ole Miss, 25-15 overall. This team has been to 4 straight bowl games now. There was a gap in there from 2016 to 2019 where this team didn't make any bowl games. So it's been pretty impressive to see the rise of Ole Miss the past few years. Last year they were in, would have been the Texas Bowl against Texas Tech, where they lost it 42-25. So it was definitely, and even the year before, a couple of pretty disappointing finishes to the past couple of years. They had lost in the Sugar Bowl a couple of years ago to Baylor 21-7. But your stat comparison, Penn State 15th overall in points per game, third in points allowed. This is overall a really balanced team here in Penn State. They're especially strong on defense, but this offense has definitely had their impressive games this season as well. They're 90th in pass yards a game, 37th in rush yards, and then this is the top-ranked rush defense in the country here in Penn State, and they're going up against a pretty strong rushing team in Ole Miss. Obviously, Quinshon Judkins has been really impressive this season, over 1,000 yards and 15 touchdowns. He's a name to keep an eye on. And both passing games are halfway decent. You got Drew Aller on the Penn State side, still a young quarterback, but this is definitely a season to build on for him. 2,300 yards, 23 touchdowns. Has only thrown one pick this season. That is very impressive for a guy as young as Drew Aller is. And if you look at Jackson Dart on the Ole Miss side, he's a little more aggressive, 2,900 yards, nearly 3,000 with 20 touchdowns, 5 picks. I mean, Drew Aller is just a very conservative quarterback, I would say. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes. He doesn't turn over the ball much, which is huge. But he's not a huge standout at the quarterback position quite yet. But for Ole Miss, 47th in points allowed, not a bad team, a pretty balanced team as well. But yeah, you could say this is a stronger team when it comes to the offense than the defense. But recent matchups, Penn State beat Michigan State 42-0, beat Rutgers 27-6. Couple of dominant wins for this team heading into bowl season. But once again, you consider the loss to Michigan 15-24. I honestly thought that this Penn State team in that Michigan game really had a chance. I mean, Michigan coming off of the controversy with the sign stealing and everything, it just felt like it was finally Penn State's time to pick up a huge win, and simply didn't happen. Michigan found a way and won it by 9. But you look before that, dominant win over Maryland, 51-15. Lost to Ohio State by 8 as well, 20-12. So once again, just couldn't get past Ohio State and Michigan this season. But as for Ole Miss, beat Mississippi State by 10, beat Louisiana Monroe 35-3. Had that pretty bad loss to Georgia, 17-52. This defense just couldn't hold Georgia. And The Bulldogs just ran all over them. But you look before that, a nice win against Texas A&M, beat Auburn, beat Arkansas, beat LSU, and then obviously the two touchdown loss to Alabama back in September, which was in Tuscaloosa. Your key points: Penn State 10-2. Drew Aller's a good quarterback, but has yet to break through. So this is an opportunity for him to take on a really solid team and see what he can do. And honestly, this should give us a pretty good look into the future. Looking forward to 2024 with Drew Aller as Penn State's quarterback. He's obviously a talented quarterback, a really highly rated recruit out of high school. We just haven't seen him play at that high level yet. But once again, he's still a young quarterback. This is his first full season starting for the Nittany Lions. So I think the future is still bright for this offense. But obviously, the last two seasons for this team have been very, very similar. You got a 2-loss Penn State team heading into a New Year's Six bowl game. Both losses to Michigan and Ohio State, just couldn't get past those teams. But this team was what? I think they're ranked 7th at the end of last season. They were honestly the quietest 7th-ranked team in the country that I can remember to finish out a season. You just didn't hear much of them because they were overshadowed by Michigan and Ohio State, but they were truly a really strong, impressive team. But as for Ole Miss, another successful season. This team is on the rise right now. Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss definitely got something special building there. As the future is bright for Ole Miss as the SEC now adds Texas and Oklahoma. But these teams are in similar positions. That you look at Penn State and Ole Miss, both teams you could argue are the 3rd best teams overall in their conferences. You got two powerhouses in front of them, and otherwise you got these two teams that are kind of in the background, but are still really impressive teams that deserve definitely a bit more attention. But for Ole Miss, they're overall a balanced team, stronger in offense than Penn State, I would say, although for the Nittany Lions, they do have the advantage defensively. But with that, let's get the prediction here for Penn State and Ole Miss coming up here in the Peach Bowl. And in the end, this one is pretty much a coin toss for me. I really went back and forth on this one, but I'm going to be taking Penn State. 31-24 is my predicted final score. I feel like you got two teams here that are pretty much on the same level. And honestly, this is bound to be a pretty good matchup because this is one of the few good matchups where you got pretty much all the key players in this matchup on both sides. A lot of games this bowl season have players in the transfer portal, NFL draft, whatever. This game, not so much. You got two teams with bright futures and younger key players, and that's definitely something that I think is bound for a pretty impressive game here. But I do want to take Penn State 31-24. I'm saying 51% towards Penn State, so as close as it gets. I don't use 51% too often, but I think this is one of those situations where it's definitely deserved. You got two teams pretty much on an equal playing field. I feel like Penn State's defense finds a way to hold Ole Miss and give their offense a chance to win it, but it's definitely a matchup that can go either way. You got Ole Miss, who's got a stronger offense, Penn State with a stronger defense. I do think it ends up going over just barely, but it's really a matchup that could go either way there, and I've got Penn State covering the spread in the end. But with that, let me know your thoughts and comments below on this matchup, your score predictions, all of that. My name's Evan. This is All Sports Central. Stay tuned for more. We'll catch you on the next one.